What happens when prices get so high that the average person can't afford them anymore? Being forced to live with off of less, increase in crime. Already there. People use credit cards more, and amass more debt. Long before that happens, the most vulnerable in society would be dying. We'd see disabled people dying, increased homelessness, a greater demand for food banks, and a rise in crime like shoplifting. This will mostly be passed off as a personal failing of those who are working class. A lack of work ethic or poor money management skills being blamed. No one will care. No one cares until the middle classes start to feel the pinch. But protesting is too polite here in the UK and too niche in the US, so it doesn't really make much difference. Sometimes discontent builds and a trigger ignites riots. But again, this is framed as flaws in working class people rather than justified anger at the system. Elites and government will not jump to the aid of lower classes. Thus any economic recovery would be very slow. Edit. I wrote this knowing full well that this is what it's like now. I'm disabled living in the UK. We are dying. There is more homelessness, etc. It is frustrating that only recently people have given a damn about the cost of living, while we've been begging for help and suffering for over a decade. The Great Depression. Historically speaking, you are one generation away from violent revolution. I would hope we would riot or something. France don't play games. Maybe take a page out of their book. Crime rate goes up. More homeless people on the streets. We all know this is a leading question, but I'm going to answer in good faith. It's all about Econ 101. Supply and demand. When prices for a product goes up, demand goes down. Similarly, when prices go down, demand goes up. But also when prices go up, supply tends to follow up. After all, if you could get more money for manufacturing product X, you might decide it's worth the investment and effort to start manufacturing X. So more suppliers enter the marketplace. It's just not always easy for new suppliers to enter the marketplace or to do it quickly. This is what we saw in 2021, when supply chains were all messed up. So now we have to talk about what is called elastic demand. Some products are elastic, which means the demand is very sensitive to the changing price. Dog toys might be very elastic. If the price of dog toys went up 200%, you would stop buying them or switch to another option. Other products are inelastic, meaning that you have to buy it no matter the price. Think toilet paper or gasoline. It doesn't matter if the price of gas goes up, you still need to buy it. A part of the demand side is alternative goods. When the price of one item changes, you might look for an alternative that would be cheaper. So instead of buying dog toys, you just buy tennis balls. Or instead of buying Cheerios, you buy Toasted O's. Prices go up. Inflation. When there is a mismatch in supply and demand, the demand is higher than supply, and there is some outside factor preventing supply from matching demand. A global pandemic shutting down factories, for instance. But more than that could be a shift in consumer behavior. If a big chunk of the workforce decided to work from home all at once and then decided that it would be a better idea to live in a house in the suburbs, that would cause a huge shift in demand for houses. And it's not like you can immediately build thousands of houses, so the price goes up. So now, with all of that background, if prices go so high the average person can't afford them anymore, your premise is either flawed or you're assuming the worst-case scenario. As for the flawed premise, the average person would switch to an alternative. They would get roommates or buy store-brand food and clothes. They would downsize and buy less. They would take less trips and go out less. There is actually a lot of cheaper alternatives that the average person could take advantage of. Or, The average salary would go up because the average person would switch to another job that offered more. As for worst-case scenario, this assumes that there is no government intervention to prevent a total collapse of the economy. In this scenario, prices have climbed so much that even cheaper alternatives are too expensive. Wages haven't changed or even gone down. Premium goods aren't being purchased. The manufacturers and the suppliers to the manufacturers all go out of business, forcing more unemployment and lower wages. Without the premium good competition, cheaper alternatives keep increasing prices. People stop participating in the economy. They steal and kill and barter. Some lucky ones will be able to grow their own food. At this point, there are 3 ways it ends. First, enough people die so that the survivors can be self-sufficient. Second, a big outside influence shocks the economy back to beating, i.e. World War II. Third, it just naturally stabilizes over time. The third option is really the most likely in this worst-case scenario. Eventually, supply and demand stabilize. This is practically a natural law of human nature. And it's why controlled capitalism works. People eventually want something better and find better, cheaper alternative goods. Note that really, the worst-case scenario wouldn't happen in modern Western countries. We have a lot of guardrails and controls on capitalism to keep it from going to Great Depression. Even a late-stage capitalist country like the US is practically socialism compared to 1929. You stop buying the goods, and then if lots of folks stick together and boycott the product, sales drop, and if the sales drop enough, the producer will drop the price. Called supply and demand. Another factor is if it is a popular product, then someone else can make it cheaper, then prices will also drop. Think China and India here. Culture plays a huge part here. In France, people block entire highway systems over relatively inconsequential issues. In the US, people accept huge levels of wealth disparity abuse. There seems to be a notion that ubiquitous gun ownership is for the benefit of the people. I'm fairly certain it's not. The benefit to the government might be that you never get large-scale rioting because most people don't want to bring a gun to a gunfight where other people likely have bigger guns. This is just my theory, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Americans will continue to suffer vast amounts of disparity and pain before anything changes or anyone complains at a large scale. Discretionary purchases cease and the economy falters as all resources go to housing, food, and utilities. Businesses fail and you enter a downward spiral. Black market economy grows along with crime as risk versus reward balance shifts. Increased personal debt as people struggle to adjust to a less plentiful lifestyle, or for the less well-off simply can't afford to live even at the most basic level. People also borrow from the future, reducing or stopping pension contributions or savings. Health deteriorates, mental and physical, with long-lasting impacts. Impacts take time to see but are insidious. Ultimately, impacts on ability of labor force to work, further harming the economy. Basically life in the UK already for many. I tell you what they do: credit, or live off beans, rice, and porridge. We just literally go pull people out of their homes and take what we want from them. That's what revolution. It's already happening. The last time this happened in the 70s and early 80s, people really struggled. My family wasn't poor, but spaghetti with plain sauce, chicken and rice, noodle casseroles were our go-to meals. I wore outlet store clothes and we didn't go places on vacation. We were very careful with money. All around us people did the same. Turned down the heat in winter. Turned off AC in the summer. I loved to read. I got a library card and it was a big deal if I got to buy a book. I had used bikes and fixed them myself. I learned to drive in 1989 in a used 1980 Chrysler Concorde. Things got better in the 90s and up through the 2010s. It's a shock to younger people now because they don't have the experience of having lived through this before. People will learn and adapt. Then, the revolution starts. Civil unrest, protests, criminals everywhere, civil war? Eventually a rich person says, "Let them eat cake," or something similar. Then the peasants bust out the pitchforks and revolt. We are approaching that point in this country. End-stage capitalism perfectly describes our condition. Keep in mind that they are still predicting a recession later this year. So things are likely to get worse before they improve. It is not just the USA. France has been revolting for weeks. But our media buries the story. People look to alternatives.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.